Saturday, May 20th, 2023. I was doing some reading, and you ever read in the Bible, there's obviously a lot of words in there that they don't come with definitions, but some people, they added on to the Bible as time progressed in order to help people when they look at certain words. And then when you look at other words, like, for instance, ordinance or jurisdiction, there's a legal word and legal terminology for ordinance as well as jurisdiction, but people actually comprehend that everything that has to do with legalities always comes from the commandments, like thou shalt not kill. Like, if you kill anyone, you're going to the courthouse. If you drink and drive and do a homicide, you're getting in trouble for vehicular manslaughter, things of that nature. But when you look at the definitions of ordinance or jurisdiction from a theological as well as a legal standpoint, everybody knows that there are different definitions. But even in the English language, you look at words like, for instance, the definition of the word happy, right? It has over a dozen synonyms with it, right? And one of the actual words that's a synonym is gay. So if you look up happy, you're going to come up with the synonym of gay, and it actually takes your mind to, in the UK and Britain, they still say they're gay, but they don't think about it like that. They're talking about heterosexual as well as happy. So then you also look at other words like in America, you call someone a fag, it means they're homosexual. But in Britain, they talk about smoking a fag like a cigarette. So there are all these things in the English language that stick out that were just kind of not completed, done half-ass, things of that nature, and you think about it, how things were in their baby stages. But that's why Florida is having these issues now with, like, banning the word gay and stuff like that, or misusing the word gay. And you think about it, and I'm completely heterosexual, but I comprehend why a lot of people are having issues with this stuff. And it was brought to my attention because a lot of people don't think about a lot of the stuff that's still in its baby stages. For instance, like the legal system, a House resolution, HR 8791, that's anti-consumption of human flesh and blood. So everything in the Bible is coming out of the Bible. Mark, Matthew, Luke, Paul, all those books, they offer a lot of insight, especially about not drinking blood. So instead of having some legal loophole where somebody can get away with it, like some of the actresses and actors in Hollywood, even the hip hop artists and musical artists, whatever genre, but some of them have talked about, we drink blood and we do things like that. That's exactly where they have a law for it. And I was also thinking about how, if you look at the definitions of these words, for instance, fraudulent, the last two words, obtained by criminal means, with the definition. And there are people out there that have been fraudulent their entire existence. When I was getting into a theological, philosophical conversation about a lot of these things, I was bringing up a lot of the histories of the Catholic Church. And I'm not Catholic either, I'm a Christian. But people get offended that when you bring up these things, and even when you're being accurate, it's like the more accurate you are, the more pissed off they are, because it's not only making them look guilty for actually having something that's anti-Christian, but you look at you sum up everything with the facts, and even when Jesus was struggling with these things. For instance, when Jesus and Paul were going from place to place and they were healing people, they had to flee some of the Romans in certain situations because of the Roman occupation of Egypt. And you line up all these things with just as much accuracy as possible. Bethlehem, even, Bethlehem is a city in Palestine, and Jesus's mother was Mary, but that's a Palestinian city. And I got into looking at the Star of David. Star of David has nothing to do with Judaism. Star of David has everything to do with evangelicalism, as well as Metatron, the solfeggio symbol. So I was also looking into that. And then the symbol for the atom, it has to do with the axion, as well as angels, thrones angels, and orphanim. And some people were trying to use that as an atheistic symbol. Or the symbol that OTO uses. They use a lot of stuff that's not theirs. I mean, even that Bohemian Grove owl shit. Owls have everything to do with Native American history or South American Spanish history. And I find, like, when you talk about sign and countersign in the military, there are things out there that you automatically can tell right off the bat that somebody is full of shit if they're taking something and inverting it. And that's what I noticed about the Catholic Church. That's what I noticed about the Satanists. They take something very, very good and they completely invert it. It's that oldest form of flattery that people were talking about. And I never understood this, but a lot of my the NCOs that I would talk to, even the chaplains that I would talk to, they would see the same things. And I mean, even the Rose Cross, Rosicrucianism, that has everything to do with the Middle East. And you find a lot of Catholics using that. I mean, with the erection of Moloch in Rome and the recent fires that they've been having, Leviticus 20, it mentions Moloch, but people are throwing it off for a curve, and everyone thought that Moloch was an owl. Moloch is a child sacrifice deity that looks like a bull. It looks like a brazen bull that pagans would actually sacrifice their children to. And it says what it says in the scripture for Leviticus 20, not to do that. It even talks about homosexuality and a man laying with another man, which is sinful. And those things are very important because some have never been taught those things. Now, even the word homosexual, like, you're a homo sapien, right? Everybody on here pretty much has angelic lineage. So when you trace it back, before your parents got together and made a baby, before they made you, and that's the Big Bang is not a theory. Your parents got together and your dad inserted his male genitalia into your mother and they got to banging and he inseminated naturally your mother and you went right into her microcosm. And 9 months later, granted, some people took a little longer. Some people were even born early, 8-7 months early. But it's that microcosm, macrocosm effect. And where I was going with this, I mean, the word homo sapien, everyone's a homo sapien, but you look at the word homosexual and you're like, that doesn't make any damn sense because homo sapiens have sex with other homo sapiens. So Jordan Peterson was talking about it. Like, what does this word mean? What does this word mean? And they were asking him, do you think a transvestite woman, a man that fell out of his mother's vagina, got his balls chopped off and is now identifying a woman, is that a woman? And he's like, what are you asking me? You're not asking me enough here, because a man cannot produce a child without a woman. And that's that nice little area where even if you look up the definition of female, females produce ova. They have ovaries in order for a man to fertilize their eggs. So you get really into definitions here about things, and some people, like, they fall under definitions of fraudulent, and it makes them look stupid. It doesn't make the other person look dumb. But I was looking at a lot of the things that magistrates have to deal with. And even with all my studies with ESP, and that's not even extra. If you look at Revelations chapter 22, 13 through 21, all these godly gifts that have to do with divination, from Solomon fighting demons, Jesus walking on water, saving people from drowning, also healing people everywhere he went from alcoholism, as well as spiritual, mental, and physical slavery. Muhammad the Prophet in Psalms 1, or excuse me, Muhammad the Prophet's in the Bible. Moses is in the Bible with Exodus. Solomon's in the Bible, Psalms 1:1. All these significant figures are in the Bible. And when you start talking about them, that's why when I started studying theology, I had to backtrack through history. I had to read the Torah. I had to read the Quran. I had to read the book of Tobit, the book of Enoch, Apocryphas, everything. I had to read as much as possible. I had to go all the way back to Hinduism because there's a lot of Hinduism in there. I had to read the Tipitaka because there's hints to that in the Bible. Psalms 1 verses 2, meditating on the word. They know about Jesus in Asia. So I had to read the Tipitaka. I had to know about these things. But when you're reading about Moses, people are like, why are you reading the Torah? That's older than the Quran. Why are you reading about the Quran? Because Muhammad the Prophet, so what the hell is in the King James Version Bible. Now, granted, he's the founder of the Quran, but he's also in the King James Version Bible. He helped raise Jesus, and that's recognized in the Quran. Jesus is the Messiah even in the Quran. Some people don't know that. All they read is just one book. And I'm not trying to harp on anybody or make fun of anybody, but that's the way it is. Some people actually don't realize how far ahead, like 2023 years later, some people haven't figured all this stuff out. And yeah, there's a lot of chronology involved, and there's a lot of things that have to do with the missing years of Jesus, but they don't read it. They don't plug in. They don't think about it like, oh yeah, he was hanging with Buddhists here because he knows this, or he knows about the Kundalini, so he read all these good things, or yeah, he knows about the light chakra vessel. He knows about all these things. He knows about, and even when you look at the word divinity, has to do with God, or divination, or diviner, and all through the Bible it says man of God. All these things apply to men, but also as well as women. And even if you look at the Da Vinci Vitruvian Man, when I started looking at the Vitruvian Man, you come across the Sears Circle. It's that big round sphere that's around the Vitruvian Man. If you look at the Vitruvian Woman, people say, oh, there's no Vitruvian woman. We have women. You walk outside and you throw a stick in the air. Don't tell me there's no Vitruvian woman. You type online and type up Sears Circle, you're going to come up with Da Vinci stuff, and you automatically know that he read the Bible. All the stuff that he drew was biblical. But that's my say in this right now, but I figured I would just upload that stuff. And people look at definitions, but there are a lot of things that are still in their baby stages, even 5,000, 7,000 years later. I mean, you look at some of the things in Genesis that have to do with serpents talking. And on every continent, even on the History Channel, even on Discovery Channel, the Above Majestic documentary, they talk about serpents talking. They're talking about Nagas. They're talking about Kappas. They're talking about beings like Ravana, dragon people, and things like that. They have stuff like that all over Korea, all over China. And it's in there, but you look at it and you're like, okay, so that's 666. That has to do with the mark of the beast. But even when people don't read Ezekiel 10:4, they don't know about brilliance. They don't know about luminescence. They don't know about light, radiance. I mean, these are all words that have to do with light. So when I started reading all this stuff, I wanted to make it plain and clear to show you guys where I was at. Nikola Tesla, you can tell that he read the Bible because he started thinking in matters of the universe. And when it came to it, I mean, everybody knows that energy, frequency, and vibration equals light. And some people are like, no, Nikola Tesla said everything is light. And you're just like, dude, energy, frequency, and vibration is light. And if you put them all together, that's you. So you start thinking in terms of how you were godly made, how you were godly constructed. You were made in the image of man, or made in the image of God. But man is made in the image of God. You look at the line of creation, you have angels. Some people say jinn, but their constitutions are different. You know, angels are light, love. I mean, even they had a sphere. They had male and female angels. They had male and female jinn. Even in the Quran, you look at Muslims and they validate that. They're like, yeah, I believe in that. I mean, you can't not look at the line of creation. Then you had male and female and with angels, male and female with jinn, male and female with men and women, humans. And some people think they're left out of it, but then you even have cynocephaly. You're talking about werewolves, and then some people they kind of keep it like a hush hush, even with the Catholic Church and the history of vampires. And people are like, "Oh, he's eccentric," and we're like, "No, it's pretty fucking extraordinary when you think about it." And they use the wrong terminology. They don't even know what eccentric means. You know, it means you're off balance, out of circle, not really coordinated, not really knowing what you're doing. And the antonym is extraordinary. And that's, you know, you watch movies and some of these smart guys are like, that's extraordinary. Well, it is. It's hypernatural. It's supernatural. Some people have abilities like the mothers that lift cars off of their children. Force healing. Jesus walked everywhere and healed everybody. Moses parted the Red Sea, freed 400,000 men, women, and children. The ability to comprehend Enochian and Lumerian. I mean, I have some of these gifts and I rationalize with them, but there are other people in the Midwest as well as the West. I mean, I like talking to this stuff with Middle Easterners, Persians, Asians, people that actually take spirituality to another level. I can't talk to a lot of people about this that are secular because they're just like, I don't get it. Some abilities, you look at them and some people are like, yeah, I see things that you can't see and I see the world that you can't see. But now Jordan Peterson and you have Joe Rogan and they're talking about DMT entities, things like that. And a lot of people see that stuff and they've never taken drugs. I mean, DMT is produced by the body naturally. And you look at these scenarios where people have been faced with something like some kind of entity. A lot of people talk about sleep paralysis. A lot of people see shadows. And then before you know it, Discovery Channel's covering that. History Channel's covering that. That Gaia show. I mean, everything on there. It's like Coast to Coast AM, and people are talking about all these hypernatural things, supernatural things, but they've always really been there. And you got to think about perception, because some people's perception is just, it's like the visual light spectrum. It's in a box, and people only see this much. They only see this much. Some people, they knock the walls down like Jericho and they see freaking everything. That's kind of how I've been. I mean, some people's perceptions, it grows with time, granted. And I try to keep an open mind with people, even with me. I mean, I'll use myself as an example because I'm not trying to trash anybody. After I read the Bible, I started reading the Quran. People were like, oh, you're going to be Muslim now? And I was like, this is theology, man. Like, even my brother was like, I don't even know what theology means. Look it up, bro. Look it up. Or even when I started reading the Torah, oh, are you Jewish now? We have family that is Jewish, you motherfucker. Like, that's where you look at all these things in the commonalities. Like, it's like when you study history also. And some people are just oblivious. Like, I have Middle Eastern family. My family does not go 20 fucking years. You think about it, your lineage is over 2,000 years old. My lineage is over 7,000 years old. My name is Joshua Jaime Alamos, leader of the people, God on high. I'm not a rapper. I'm not an entertainer. Joshua literally means leader of the people. Jaime means James. It doesn't mean Babylon. It doesn't mean anything crazy. And that's another thing too. Alamos means God on high, Most High God. I was looking at stuff online and I typed in Palestinian and just to see what it typed in. And the definition came up as terrorist. I was like, well, that's an obvious fuck up. And then I typed in some other name on there. And you look at some of the stuff, you have to consider the source. Now, when you look at history, when you look at serious history, you have to really consider the source. They're like, I had a buddy out there, right? And I won't say his name out of respect for him, but we had a small conversation and he was raised Catholic and my parents they kept me in every kind of church program there was. So I got to learn from Catholics. I got to learn from Jews. I got to learn from Muslims. I got to learn from anybody who would teach me. Christianity, it did not matter. I wanted to know more and more about the Bible, more and more about walks of life. And it started to turn into like not an experiment, not a sociology experiment, just to see how people live, you know? I mean, people live their lives day to day. And so that's why sociology, in my opinion, is just a dead end because it's very superficial. There are people out there that literally not judge people, but it's like psychology a little bit because it's the study of human beings and animals. And the word judging isn't right. You know, your perception and profile of somebody, you try not to do that, but it's like when you're in college, you're studying all the time. That doesn't necessarily make you an introvert. I mean, if I wasn't on the shooting range, shooting shotguns or rifles with my friends or taking trekking trips or running on the bikes or running around the neighborhood doing track or sports or what have you, you know, being a teenager, I kept my mind and my head in the books or in prayer. And you look at some things these days and it's just like sign, countersign. You can tell when somebody's full of shit. When I mention the word haram, it's an Arabic word that means forbidden. And Arabic forbidden, English just means forbidden. It's stricken, it's restricted, you know? But as soon as you say haram, they're like, are you a Muslim now? And it's like, dude, if I was a linguist, and I am a linguist, I mean, I have to know Arabic, Aramaic, English, Spanish, French. There are things out there that people have no basis of comparison on, and it just makes their perception itty bitty. And the more I look at some people, you really look at them and you're like, I don't want to judge you, but you don't know shit. You really don't. And there are some people out there that literally just don't know shit. I mean, they base their entire life off of a hip hop album. Or if that dumbass is doing something stupid, are you going to do it too? And it's like that old saying, if someone jumped off a bridge, would you do it? And that's your parents talking. Usually most people say that, you know, if someone jumps off a bridge, would you do it? And that actually comes from the Bible because Satan was tempting Jesus to throw himself off a cliff and he was going to say, angels will catch you. And he was contradicting Jesus the entire time through everything. And pretty much Satan was trying to trick Jesus into committing suicide. And he's like, no, I'm not going to throw myself off a cliff. Or you think about those old sayings like you can't turn a whore into a housewife. The book of Hosea, Gomer was a prostitute. She got married and she was a better mother and a wife than a prostitute. Or you think about stupid ass sayings like, there's the devil in the details. Well, you can tell right away you should not be listening to that individual because God's in the details. It tells you everything bad about the devil and it tells you all the good about Jesus. And I mean, he's a predecessor to me. You look at the Deliverance of God. I mean, some people only, when I say certain books are a rolling story, there are going to be books after the Bible. I mean, you look at Torah, Tipitaka, Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapada. I mean, the list goes on. There's so much compiled into the Bible. If you do the works cited, you realize, oh, I guess he is right. And it's not about me being right all the time. It's just about, seeing what you see and learning it for yourself and doing your own research. That's why a lot of people do their own research. There are a lot of Catholics that are told not to drink stimulants. And yet through the Middle Ages, they were drinking Vin Mariani, and that was cocaine and wine. And it says, obviously, Luke 1:15, as well as Quran 5:90, do not consume wine or hard drink. And that's a complete contradiction and a misuse of Jesus's influence. And that's what I actually take from everything. The more I look at these things, especially with the John Jay study report, and a lot of the flock that are Catholics, they're moving away from it. They realize, I mean, they have a lot of respect for Jesus, and I'm not generalizing them all, but the entire Vatican Catholic diocese failed their entire flock, and that's not the people's fault. I mean, it's a secular, and if you look at the actual word secular, it's a secular institution based on money. They're using Jesus's influence in order to get money. And if they can't get their tithing, they were just raise taxes. And now that's the way they used to do it in the Middle Ages. If you look at everything, Christians, they had the same book as the Muslims. I mean, the principalities are just the same. The principles are all the same. And yet Catholics were recruiting Christians in order to fight in the Crusades against the Muslims. And you look at the history and you're just like, this is freaking insane. And you look at things nowadays that are going on, it's like a repeat of history. And that's when I really started paying attention. Some people miss it, but even during World War II, they had Hitler, who was a Nazi, going around, and he did the same thing with the Tibetan symbol. I mean, the swastika. It wasn't a swastika until Hitler took it from the Tibetan people. And he used that influence of peace, and he tried to use it in other places to go on his Vril Society trips doing occult shit. But I'll finish this now, and you all have a blessed day. Bless you all in the name of Jesus Christ. Revelations 22:21. Bye. Yeah.